What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about 10 things that you need, tools that I would recommend for working on your guitar. So doing setups, general maintenance, things like that. Most of this stuff is relatively inexpensive. It's pretty attainable for all of us. But if you kind of want a complete kit that'll do pretty much everything that you need to do on an electric guitar, I think most of it is going to be here. I'm going to give you a couple of honorable mention bonus things too that are not totally needed, but might help in your guitar maintenance kit. Before we do that, do me a favor, hit the like and the subscribe button if you like guitar stuff, because that's what we talk about basically every day here on Dylan Talks Tone. And also, I'm going to link everything that we talk about in the description below. Most of that stuff is probably affiliate links that will help out the channel if you use those links. You don't have to. It doesn't cost you anything to do that though, and it does help us out. It's one way of supporting the channel. Thanks for doing that. Okay, let's get into our top 10 tools that I use. I actually use this stuff here at Dylan Talks Tone to work on guitars. Number one thing we don't want to forget is going to be a tuner. Now there's a bunch of different kinds of tuners that you could use to work on your guitar. The simple clip-on tuner is very effective. In fact, most modern tuners, if you click on any reputable brand, okay, so if you think of Snark, this is a Korg, there's TC Electronics, there's Peterson, they're all going to be accurate down to about 1/10 of a cent, which is it's actually way more than we can hear. So it's pretty good. They're going to be pretty good. So a clip-on tuner, though, the only downside to it is that it will be kind of susceptible to outside vibrations. So you just want to make sure you're in a quiet environment when you're using a clip-on tuner. The other thing is I like one that has a bunch of little segments. You know, if it's going to go off center and show you out of tune, I want to have a bunch of little notches there to be as accurate visually as I possibly can in case I'm not catching it with my ear. So a clip-on tuner is cool. The shop tuner that we use is the Strobe Plus HD by Peterson, and this is a strobe simulating tuner, and this gets very, very accurate, and it works really well, and there's all kinds of other features. It's a little bit more expensive, but this is kind of next level. If you want to have one on the bench that you're going to work on a bunch of different guitars, this thing is fantastic. You'll see this in a lot of our videos. Every time we do some kind of setup video, this is the tuner that we're using. Daily life, this little Korg right here is the one I use. If you have an electric guitar, I would recommend getting a multimeter, a digital multimeter. Many times, if somebody orders pickups from us here at Dylan Talks Tone, they'll order them, they'll put them in the guitar, maybe they have a little issue, maybe something's touching where it's not supposed to touch or something like that. It's very difficult to test that stuff if you don't have a multimeter. If you start to have scratchy pots, if you start to have a switch that doesn't work, anything like that, it's very easy to troubleshoot that if you have a digital multimeter, and these do not have to be expensive. This is a Fluke 101, but you can get, I'll put a picture of it right here and a link in the description for 40 bucks or so. You can get a very good multimeter. You don't need tons and tons of features. DC voltage and AC voltage would be helpful. That's a staple. Resistance is probably the thing you're going to use the most. And if you want to be able to measure capacitance, that's a cool feature, but not every meter has that. But I would say, for the most part, you're going to use resistance and DC and AC voltage. So those are the things that I would care about. So for not a lot of money, you can do a lot of kind of troubleshooting on electric guitar circuits with just a very simple one. If you want a video that dives specifically into how to troubleshoot various things on your electric guitar using one of these, put it in the comments and I would love to make that video. We've done it in the past, but it would be a good thing to do, right? Kind of go through and figure out how to know if a pot is bad, how to know if a pickup is bad, how to know if a jack is bad, all those kind of things using this tool. Let me know and we'll put that in the comment. Put that in the comments and maybe we'll make that video. Number 3 is going to be a toolkit. You can go to Harbor Freight, obviously, or wherever, and you can assemble a bunch of screwdrivers and a bunch of stuff to work on guitars. I personally like this little StewMat kit. It's not super expensive, and it's got some very interesting specific to guitar tools in here. It's got all of the small Allen keys that you might use, especially if you're going to have like a double action tremolo, like a Floyd or something like that. It's got some thread fixing things if you've ever had a thread strip out, like from a pick guard or something like that. It's got the little captive screw driver that you can use to adjust pickup pull piece screws without slipping off and scratching the top of your pickup. And a few other things specific to guitar things. You can see them all right here. I really like this little kit. I've got a couple of these around. I keep one of them in my bag that I take with me. Like if I'm going to go do a gig, I've got this little toolkit with me. But this will do pretty much everything, as far as adjusting your truss rod and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have a Gibson truss rod wrench in it, but usually your guitar has that, so you should be covered between the two things. Number 4, this might not be important, but a capo. A capo is really important, in my opinion, for a third hand for checking your neck relief, because when you put it on the first fret and then you fret the last fret, and then you can very easily check your neck relief with either the StewMat gauge that we're going to talk about or a set of feeler gauges. So this is very helpful. Also, if you have a Bigsby, you can use a capo to capture the strings while you change strings. It's a third hand. Or if you've got a tremolo, for example, or if you're doing some kind of work on a guitar where you need to loosen the strings but not take them off, putting a capo on the first fret will help to keep everything together and not have it all fly apart. For example, if you're working on a saddle on an acoustic guitar and you have to take slack off the strings so you can pull the pins, it's helpful to have a capo on your first fret. So it's just easy, it's just nice to have around. Next, string crank. You can put one of these on a drill. They've got the ones that go on like a driver. Personally, I don't like to use the ones that go on a drill. I like to use the hand ones because if you have some kind of problem, especially on an old guitar, that's, maybe you've got, Bakelite tuning keys or something, you want to be delicate with it. This one also has a little deal on the end so you can pop the pins on your acoustic guitar without scratching them, which is pretty cool. But a string crank obviously makes everything very easy, a lot faster, and like I said, I like using a manual one because I don't want to be feeling a problem or not be able to feel a problem as I'm doing it. Oh, this tuner's acting funny, or there's something hung up or whatever, and you end up ruining something because you can't feel it because you're using a power tool. So I like using this manual one. Next on the list is going to be some kind of string action gauge. I like the ones that have all of the cheater measurements on the backside because sometimes I'll forget. But it's got metric and standard, I believe. Yep, thousandths of an inch over here and fractional metric on this side. So you can decide, stand this on your fretboard and decide how high you want your strings. You can also measure string spacing. If you're doing like a nut, for example, have to cut a new slot in. There's a lot of helpful things that you can do with one of these. And just having it around. You could also use a digital caliper if you wanted to, but this is just faster because these references are kind of already here and they're easy, right? Just super easy, no moving parts. Next thing I like to have around is one of these levers for, I don't even know what you call it, but I'll leave a link to it. It's the lever for being able to take off a knob. Not only that, but it's also got the little teeth in here. There's counterclockwise and clockwise, and you can put this onto the nut on your knobs to make sure, like if your pots are spinning in your guitar, that you can tighten those nuts with this, or loosen them to take them out. But this is a safe way. One of the things I like to do a lot of times on a wooden guitar, because you're kind of prying against the guitar, is I like to take a piece of blue tape, I'll put it on the bottom, I'll put it on the guitar, and then I'll take this and I'll pop the knob off with this so I don't do any damage to the guitar, and it works really awesome. Strat knobs, for example, are very difficult to get off if you don't have something like this, because you could use string, I guess, but they come off super lopsided with string, and sometimes you can bend the little threads, the little knurls on a Strat knob, for example, because the knob sits so close to the pick guard a lot of times. So these are super helpful. Along the same lines, this little bullet thing is funny. It's you know, I don't know how I ended up with this. Somebody gave me this, and it is the most indispensable little thing. Take, for example, on a Les Paul. You have, or a Les Paul style guitar, you have a loose output jack. What you do is you put this in here, and when you push down on this, this pushes into the output jack and grips it from the inside, and then you can tighten or loosen, tighten the input jack, or the output jack. It works on a Telecaster too. Sometimes the Telecaster ones inside that little cup are a little bit hard to get to. So you go like this, you push this in there, and then you can tighten that nut in there without having to take the whole thing apart, without having to do it from the inside. It also helps on hollow body guitars because you know hollow body guitars are very difficult to get the inside. So yeah, these are super handy. Next, I would definitely say, and we've already kind of mentioned or alluded to it, that having a set of feeler gauges around is very, very helpful when you're doing all kinds of measurements, but most importantly, your nut height measurement and your neck relief measurement are very helpful to do with this right here. You can use it for string height, but it is not as accurate because you end up stacking up a bunch of them and it's not as accurate. We'll get to that here in just a minute. This is kind of the tried and true way that most people use to check their nut height and their neck relief. And so I would always recommend having a set of feeler gauges around. I mostly use my feeler gauges to gap tines on fountain pens though. I don't actually use a feeler gauge very often because I'll just give you a little bonus thing here. What I personally use is the StewMac digital nut height gauge. This is far more accurate than the normal way because you don't have the risk of kind of pushing and pulling. And if you want to be very accurate, this is super, super accurate to use. Very accurate. Some people would say that you can't use it for string height because, oh, the little plunger is going to weigh down on the string and it's going to cause it. I've done a ton of testing. I've talked to a couple of other people that have done a ton of testing. It's fine. It works fine. You can use it for string height and you can use it for nut height, and it is super, super accurate. It's a little spendy, but let me tell you, once you have one, you'll never go back. Now these last two things, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess I'll count that last thing as 9. I guess we have 11. So, okay, I thought there was going to be 10, but there's actually 11. When you're working on your guitar, when you get a new one, you want to make sure, especially when you're first doing a setup, that your frets are good and that your action, your neck relief is right. Having a straight edge that fits your scale length is very helpful. This is a StewMac straight edge. You can get cheap ones on Amazon, but typically they're laser jetted or laser cut, or either laser cut or water jetted. And a lot of times they're pretty rough. And what happens is you end up with, they're not totally straight. Sometimes they can be not totally straight. And a couple thousandths of an inch matters on some of this stuff. So, because when we're talking about neck relief and making sure that the fretboard is completely flat before we do any fret adjustments or filing or anything like that, we need to make sure that it's really flat and really accurate. A couple thousandths of an inch can totally screw you up. So having something that's a machined piece, which is what this is. This is a machined piece that's been, probably with a fly cutter, cut very, very flat and super accurate. And, lifetime warranty, you'll have it forever. There's no moving parts, so it's not like it's gonna wear out. It might cost a few bucks, but you're gonna have it forever. And when you're doing neck relief measurements and you're making sure that your frets are good, it's the basis for the rest of your setup. So this is an important thing to make sure that you get right. So one of these is super, super helpful to have. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is this is not necessarily requirement. So this is number 11. This is not necessarily a requirement, but man, I would recommend it. This is a fret end dressing file. When you buy a new guitar, oftentimes, especially very inexpensive guitars, you will find that they might have some sharp edges on them, right? On the edges of the frets. Or you may find with change of seasons, depending on your climate, that you could have some sharp frets. And so being able to quickly dress the ends of those frets and make them nice and smooth is very helpful. This file has one flat edge and it has one radiused edge on the unfile surfaces, on the non-file surfaces. And it makes it to where you don't do damage to your fretboard. And the other thing about it is the teeth on the file are very, very fine. This is another thing where you could go to Harbor Freight or whatever and buy a cheap file and grind some edges off of it and do the thing, but what you'll find is they're not fine enough. And they'll end up really chewing up the ends of your frets and not giving you a very smooth result. For 15 bucks or whatever this thing costs, again, lifetime warranty, you'll have it forever as long as you don't lose it. And this will give you the results you're actually looking for, like literally like a custom shop results with this little file. And so it's very helpful to have this thing. Well, there you go. There's a list of 10 plus one, little bonus thing, that little file. Tools that I would recommend having around to work on your guitar. I think that if you have these things, you'll be able to do pretty much everything you want to do. The only other thing I would think of is maybe a soldering iron. I'll leave a link to a soldering iron in the description. That's a whole nother conversation, how to solder, all those kinds of things. If you want to know about that, we could definitely do a video just on soldering if you want to do that. Also, because I love to solder. That's like, I really enjoy it. So if you want to do a video on that, we sure can do that too. Thanks for hanging out. I'll leave a link to all this stuff in the description. If you use those links, it helps out the channel a lot. Make sure you go to DylanTalksTone and check out pickups and parts and pots and caps and all the other things that you need to keep the electrical side of your guitar rolling. We have at DylanTalksTone. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in the next video.